In 1989, Simple Minds are one of the most popular rock bands in the world. Their current tour is attracting huge audiences, and the single Belfast Child and the album Street Fighting Years both reached #1. Now they're classed as a stadium rock act, but it's been a long and fascinating struggle to achieve all they have today. Simple Minds' career dates back to 1977, when punk swept through Britain, and when Jim Kerr and others were playing in Glasgow's first punk band, Johnny and the Self-Abusers.
In 1977, very early, March, April, it became apparent there was a lot of people, young people in Glasgow, excited at this idea things were kind of happening in London, but they weren't happening up here yet. There had been a few bands had toured, the Stranglers had come, and there was an amazing night in the City Hall, and I think the Jam had played. But still in the pubs and clubs in Glasgow, it was just people playing sort of covers versions of Eagles songs and Wishbone Ash and stuff like that. And there was one pub, a famous pub in Glasgow called the Castle. And it was a group of people who used to go there as well. They would sit in the other corner. We had recognised their faces from school, but I didn't really know them. And they were wearing plastic raincoats and sort of Dave Vanian type hairstyles, and it looked pretty exciting. And one of them came over one night pretty drunk, a guy called Alan Cairnduff, and he said, "Well, ever heard of Johnny and the Self-Abusers?" And Charlie and I said no, and he said, "Oh, it's this imaginary band." And we're saying what? You know, an imaginary band? And he was like, "Yeah, it's this thing we've got, it's a name, and we're going to make it real. And, you know, you play guitar, I've heard, and you and him have been writing songs. Why don't you come down and see our thing? We've written a few songs." So the next day, the Sunday morning, Charlie Burchill and myself rolled his amp on wheels across about half a mile, a road down to this guy called John Malarkey's house. He opened the door, and we went in. There was sort of microphones. He had no microphone stands. They were taped to the ceiling and hanging down. They seemed amazing sort of characters, and they seemed that they were a lot unto themselves. And they had said, "Yeah, we've approached this guy, the manager of the Castle, and we've been on about him for ages to give this imaginary band a concert, and he's agreed to give a concert to Johnny and the Self-Abusers. All we have to do is form a band now." And it was the most exciting thing that had ever happened to us. We turned up to play, no one had ever heard of us, and there was a queue about a quarter of a mile down the street, which just never happened. It was almost like the legend. The legend was no one had even played a note, and yet you couldn't get in. And when we went on stage to play. I actually had an electric organ at the time, and that was up there. There was girl dancers. It was probably almost a takeoff of the Velvet Underground again, sort of plastic exploding. We had psychedelic lights and the whole thing. People were just going absolutely nuts, jumping on tables, swinging from lights, and people were getting thrown out the doors, and there was just kind of something in the air. It was nothing to do with the music. It was all the attitude. And it was dead apparent that the city had been waiting for this kind of a thing for a long time. It lasted for a summer. It was summer madness in Glasgow in 1977.
The demo of Subway Sex was the last recording by Johnny and the Self-Abusers. They split up in November 1977, but already Jim Kerr, Charlie Burchill and Brian McGee had bigger things in mind. They were joined by Derek Forbes from Glasgow punks The Subs and Michael McNeil, who'd been playing in cabaret bands. Now calling themselves Simple Minds, they recorded their first demos at Savard Studios in Glasgow in May 1978. And soon the word was out, Simple Minds were a band to catch live. Journalist Brian Hogg saw them support Generation X in Edinburgh.
After the gig supporting Generation X, I went backstage to introduce myself to the band and say how much I'd enjoyed it. And I said, "Can I be of any help?" Basically, because I was so enthusiastic. Was there anything I could do? Now, Bruce Finlay, who I'd known for many years previously, had been running Zoom Records for the past year, and had just signed a marketing and distribution deal with Arista and had issued 3 singles through this new deal. And I knew at that point that he was looking for something which was more permanent than just one-off singles, which had basically been the label before that. So the day after I saw Simple Minds, I phoned him up and said that, you know, I had seen the band, they were fabulous, and the audience loved them, they were very committed to what they wanted to do, and they seemed like the ideal band that he should try to become involved with. The following weekend, he went to see them at the Mars Bar in Glasgow, where they'd had a residency, and he was knocked out by the band as well.
There was a queue outside. They'd built a phenomenal reputation. They were getting huge crowds, like 130 people, 150 people. Sounds huge, you know. But they were closing the bar, and the bar was closed every night about 7:30, and people were just locked in for the gig. And I got in, and Simple Minds came on stage, and Jim, looking deadly serious, lights went down. There's this girl sitting there with a switchboard. When I say a switchboard, I mean literally 4 on-off light switches on a board and doing lights. And this guy, Davey Henderson, who I'd met the week before when he came through with Jim Kerr, doing the sound on a sound desk. I mean, it was very pompous in a way for a pub gig. And, but the lights were great. Just 4 lights. She just worked wonders with the lights and the revolving blue head on top of one of the speaker cabinets, you know. And I just thought, this is bizarre. This is not like punk rock. This is not, you know, what I expected. And I watched the whole gig and I was absolutely riveted. The crowd went apeshit. I went apeshit. The band were great and they were so cool. Derek Forbes, the bass player, was dressed like one of the New York Dolls in a leopard skin suit. I mean, they didn't look right for Glasgow.
His heart beats the cattle pace. I know he's not killing time. I just don't want him for no friend of mine.
The first song that we wrote for Simple Minds was an epic at the time. It's a black anthem called Pleasantly Disturbed, and we really thought, God, we've written one here. This is more the kind of thing, as opposed to these songs that lasted a minute and a half. It was almost like some kind of a mantra, and for the first time we felt, God, this is, you know, bigger than us. This tune, this song, the effect of this thing, very, very sort of dramatic. And I'm pretty sure that was the first song that we put together.